Welcome everyone. My name is Julia, and I was an ALT in Fukuoka Prefecture from 2016 to 2017. Currently, I'm the Program and Membership Coordinator here at USJA. And as anyone who's ever been on the JET program, both living and teaching in Japan is truly life-changing. That's why we're so excited to help others explore this opportunity. At USJA, we are a nonprofit with the mission of strengthening US-Japan relations through providing opportunities and support to our extensive network. I also want to recognize our sister organization, JA USA, for their partnership on this program. Valerie here, who will be moderating tonight's discussion, is one of the country representatives for JA USA and has been a key part in the success of our Next JET program. For tonight's session, we will start off with a brief presentation from a JET program coordinator. Then we'll move on to the panel discussion with our experienced alumni. And after that, we'll have breakout rooms, so you'll have the opportunity to get your questions answered. And then we'll come back to the main lobby to close out the evening. Before I turn it over to Kai to kick off the JET program presentation, I just want to have a quick thank you to him for being with us today. Kai's been with the Japanese consulate in San Francisco and recently wrapped up 10 years as their coordinator. And a little fun fact, he was the one who interviewed me when I applied almost 10 years ago. So I definitely have him to thank for helping me where I am today. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Kai.
All right. Thank you, Julia. Yeah, making me feel my age there with the 10 years ago I've been interviewing you. But yeah, I'm excited to be here to talk about the JET program. Julia, did we want to have all the panelists introduce themselves first? Or do we want to do that after the presentation?
We can do that after the presentation.
Okay, great. Then real quick, my name is Kai. I'm the former JET program coordinator in San Francisco. So basically, I ran our interviews, I ran our orientation, ran our departure since 2015 to earlier this year when I finished up. Today, I'm going to talk briefly about the JET program, just a basic introduction for everybody. I myself was a JET. I was a coordinator for international relations from 2010 to 2015. So I did the full 5 years. It was a great time. It's a transformative time, whether you're an ALT, whether you're a CIR, wherever you go in Japan. So I'm excited to talk about it today with you guys. With that, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Can everyone see that? If I can get a thumbs up reaction. All right. So again, this is going to be a really quick overview of the JET program. If you're interested in learning more, I definitely recommend reaching out to your local consulate. They have coordinators there that can answer specific questions. And of course, checking out the JET Program USA homepage, as well as any other JET affiliate organization like USJA or JET USA. So JET stands for the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program. I'm sure a lot of you have done some research on the program and what it is, but really simply, it's one of the world's largest people-to-people exchange programs. We send people from the United States, from Canada, from Germany, from Australia, from South Korea to Japan to work in either English language education or an exchange, which would be like translation interpretation. It's a chance for you all to work in Japan for up to 1 year. You can work up to 5 years maximum. And then it's a chance to really promote international exchange between Japan and other countries at the grassroots level. And this is something I think the program has done really well, is getting people from around the world into these different areas in Japan, introducing them to different cultures. And of course, the flip side is that all of you who go on the JET program, you get a really unique insight into Japan. You become an expert on Japanese culture. You become an expert on, the way of life over there, and not just about Japan, like in general, but about your specific town, your specific region. You really become an expert in where you go. On the JET program, we have 2 different positions you can apply for. The first is probably the one that most people are familiar with. This is the Assistant Language Teacher, ALT. About 90% of JETs who go on the program are going as ALT. So this is the big one. This is the one that most people look at to applying. And with this, your main job is going to be teaching English, teaching about your country's culture, working together with a Japanese teacher in the classroom to teach these things to students. You could work at elementary school, you could work at middle school, you could work at high school. Some ALTs will visit things like kindergartens and stuff. Some ALTs might do adult classes. but typically are going to be in the kind of like compulsory education ages. You're also there, in addition to teaching English, to motivate students. One thing I think people forget oftentimes is that for many of the students, you're the only non-Japanese person they communicate with. So you kind of have a really awesome chance to introduce them and get them excited about the outside world. You might help with planning lessons, you might help create teaching materials, and you could also do some other projects such as after school clubs. I knew ALTs who would do things like help out with their theater clubs. I knew ALTs who would go on field trips. Even if some of the nicer schools might even have trips abroad that I've known ALTs can go on and help with. So there are a number of different duties you can do. But the big things is, again, teaching English in the classroom together with a Japanese teacher. The other position, the one I did, is called Coordinator for International Relations. About 10% of JETs are CIRs, so it's not quite as common. And this is a lot of different countries where English isn't the main language. So you might have German CIRs, you might have South Korean CIRs, French CIRs, in addition to, of course, American, Canadian, English CIRs. And CIRs don't work in schools typically. They work in government offices to translate, interpret, really utilize Japanese professional setting. So you might write newsletters, you might write articles for your town newsletters, you oversee events, I might give presentations. I had a week where one day I gave a presentation on the history of basketball, and then the next day I gave a presentation on the American Civil War, which are two very different presentations to prepare for. You might help in sister city relationships, you might help receiving international guests, and of course, you can do some English teaching. The real key difference here between the two positions, salary is the same, application process is the same. For the ALT position, you don't need any Japanese. Some Japanese is always a plus. It's absolutely great to have an application, but you don't need it. For the CIR position, you do need strong Japanese. If any of you are familiar with the JLPT, that's a Japanese language proficiency test. You don't need to have that test necessarily. You don't need to have that certification, but it's a good guideline. You should be at about N2 or N1 level Japanese, which is essentially business fluent, is what I'd like to call it. You don't need to be perfect. I certainly never was, but you have to be able to be, working in Japanese language, both reading, writing, and speaking every single day. Whatever position you apply for on the JET program, whether you're an ALT, whether you're CIR, you're employed directly by what's called a contracting organization. This is a school, this is a town hall or something like that, working in that town as a essentially teacher or a civil servant. You're there for a 12-month contract period, so that typically starts the Monday after you arrive in Japan, and then lasts until a year later. You can renew that up to 5 years maximum. And I always say one of the best parts of the JET program is you know exactly when that contract's going to end, so it's very easy to plan for your next step. You're also able to extend it pretty easily. So if you want to do 2 years, if you want to do 3 years, if you want to do 4 or 5 years, it's very easy to extend that out. And certainly you can get an amazing experience with 1 year on the JET program. You can get an amazing experience with 5 years on the JET program. It really is up to you. All JETs are given the same salary. So it's something that we're very clear with. We announce up front. You know what the amount of money you're going to be getting going in. It recently got upped, which is great news. So the salary was raised this year. It currently for first year JET is 4 million yen, technically 4,220,000 yen, which then goes up to 4,140,000 yen, 4,260, then 4,320. This is more than enough to survive comfortably in Japan. It's more than enough to get some savings going home. To be honest, the exchange rate right now, sending Japanese yen to US dollars isn't great, but certainly for your time in Japan, for being able to experience Japan, for being able to eat out, travel with friends and stuff like that, this is more than enough. We also cover transportation to Japan, transportation back home. You're enrolled in health insurance when you're in Japan. You're enrolled in the pension system. You could stay in Japan till you're 65 to claim that pension, or you can get the money that you put into the pension back when you finish the program. And you're also set up for unemployment if you want to stay in Japan after the JET program, but you can't find something right away. We do like to highlight it is a minimum 1 year contract. So I know a lot of people come into these sessions asking about summer programs or asking about 6-month programs. JET is at a minimum a 1 year contract, and breaking that contract early does have some consequences. So it's something to kind of keep in mind that if you are signing up for JET, it is going to be at minimum 1 year, leading up to 5 years maximum. With these info sessions, one of the big questions I get is, where do JETs go? And the truth is, jets go to every single prefecture. There are nearly 6,000 jets on the program. There are nearly 1,000 different contract organizations. So we have people in downtown Tokyo. We have people in rural islands. We have people in small villages, mid-sized cities. Most jets are going to be placed in medium to small towns, or cities and stuff like that. So it's going to have like a downtown area. It's going to have a shopping area. It's not just going to be a few hundred people, but it is going to be maybe smaller than if you're used to living, say, where I am right now in San Francisco or like a bigger city. On the application, you can request up to 3 locations. I always recommend folks to do their due research in where they want to go. Um, you often hear on the JET program that you never get your placement request, and I can say that isn't true. A lot of people do. But what you see a lot of is people requesting the same spots. So if you're going into the application requesting Kyoto or Tokyo or Osaka or one of the really famous spots in Japan, recognize that you're probably in competition with thousands of other JET applicants for those spots. Even if you get accepted on the program, they can't match everyone who requests those places with where they want to go. So they do try to match you as best they can, but if you request a popular spot, your chances are likely going to be lower. I always recommend find a place that's maybe less well known, find a place off the beaten path. Um, Certainly, if there's a lot of jets there, you're going to have a better chance of going there. And I'll say that think about the temperature and the environment that you like. I'm from Wisconsin originally, and I did 2 years in Kyoto Prefecture, which is really hard because it was really, really hot summers. And then I moved up north to Niigata Prefecture, which is cold and snowy. And literally, the name of it is Yukiguni, which is like snow country. And I did much better there when I didn't have those hot summers to go through. So that's another thing you can think about when you're looking into making your placement request is what kind of environment, what kind of temperature do I want to be surrounded by? For eligibility, I will let everybody know that we're speaking from the US side of things here. So if you are a US citizen, you'd be applying to a Japanese embassy and consulate in the United States. If you are a citizen of a different country, you'd look at applying through the embassy, Japanese embassy or consulate in your home country. And that just has to do with visa processing and stuff, and that's a pretty strict rule. So if you're Canadian, you'd apply through a Japanese consulate in Canada. If you're German, you'd apply through a Japanese consulate in Germany. But for US citizens, you'd apply through one of our many consulates here. We have them all across the country, San Francisco, Atlanta, obviously the embassy in Washington, D.C. Everybody has to have a bachelor's degree by the June of your departure year. So if you're applying this coming cycle, you'd apply in the fall. Next year, you need to have a bachelor's degree by June of 2020. Oh man, it's 2026 next year, isn't that fast? Basically, you need to have a degree so we can give you a work visa. That's just a standard thing. Doesn't need to be in Japanese or English, just needs to be in something. And if you graduated previously, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, there's no age limit on the JET program. So as long as you have that bachelor's degree and US citizenship, you should in principle be eligible to apply. Other things we look for, good mental health, physical health. You can certainly have, health issues and complications. We just want to make sure you're not going to have any kind of danger going to Japan. Excellent written verbal English skills, strong interest in Japan and Japanese culture. There's a number of other small criteria that most people won't fall under, but certainly you can check out JET Program USA for more information. Lastly, again, those CIR applicants, the coordinator applicants, you do need to have strong Japanese language skills. Again, for ALTs, it's always a plus to have an app for Japanese language skills in the application, but it's not at all required. This is an example timeline for this coming year. I'll say that any year you go to in the future, it's probably going to be something like this, but typically applications open in September. The deadlines are usually in mid to late November, late January, early February of interviews. You get accepted, you'd learn that in March. You find out your placement in late May. You'd have orientations prep in June, and then you'd fly out to Japan in July or August. This again has been pretty solid for about the past 38 years now. So, barring anything like COVID or the pandemic happening again, I would expect this general cycle to be true this year. I'd expect to be true next year. So you can kind of know that the application will open in September. That's when you'd be looking to apply, interview in February for departure the next summer. I always get asked what makes a successful jet applicant. What can I do to ensure I get selected for the program? And there's no one secret trick. I've seen a lot of applicants during my time in San Francisco. We probably saw 2,000 people come through the applications that I've read through. There's a lot of different background factors you can look into. Certainly things we look for are teaching and tutoring experience. That's great to have if you're looking at an ALT position, involvement in Japanese or international cultural activities. Do you have Japanese language skills? Do you have an interest in Japan that shows like why you'd be going? Do you have work or volunteer experience? This is going to be a job. Have you had an experience working before? Certainly, if you're looking at the CR position, have you had any translation experience? Um, there's a lot of different experiences. Certainly, anything you've done in university that can be kind of attested to. Any academic successes, any kind of awards, those are always really nice to see. But I think the particular things we look for are certainly teaching and tutoring experience, um, involvement in Japanese culture, Japanese language, or international culture activities in any way, and work or volunteer experience. And one thing to remember is that your personality and your attitude are key. You can have the best application in the world, but if your interview comes across that you're not going to be a good fit for a Japanese classroom, if you don't seem excited to be there, if you are, kind of confrontational, which I've seen in interviews before, it will not matter how good your application is. We're looking at what kind of person you are and if you would be a good match for the schools, for the environment we're going to send you into. One kind of page I like to give it some tips on for folks is when you're looking to build an application, say you're a few years out from applying, I think it's more helpful than to have a mountain range of skills as opposed to a single peak. One common thing we see people complain about is like, I have great Japanese, why was not selected? And certainly great Japanese is something we look for, but it's not the only thing. So if you're a few years out from applying, I would definitely think about where in your mountain range you have missing, peaks essentially. Do you maybe not have any volunteer experience? Are you maybe missing teaching experience? Maybe you've never actually studied Japanese. If you have some time, I would look into filling those gaps because that can certainly be really helpful for an application for people who are looking to do it in the future. Obviously, if you're applying maybe this year, there's maybe not enough time to kind of do some of those things. But if you're a few years out, if you're looking at it something maybe down the road, this is something that I always kind of highlight to folks as a way you can really step up your application and help ensure you make it to the interview stage where you have a chance to really sell yourself as a candidate, as a potential hire for the position. Final general tips, read everything. If you're doing the application, make sure everything's clear and legible when you upload it. For the US, everything is done online now. So you do the application online, upload your documents online, makes it a little bit easier for your folks to go back and adjust things. Answer all the questions, list all your experiences again. I've seen people before who leave off some stuff that we would really like to see on applications just because they thought it wasn't relevant. It's always better to have more on an application, one of our applications, than not enough information. The most important single part of the application is going to be this essay, the two-page statement of purpose where you tell us who you are and why you're applying for the program. My advice for the essay is 2 pages isn't a lot of space to kind of get into it, but we really want to find out who you are as a person. Make it specific to you. I have read so many essays that essentially kind of read like, I want to go to Japan and engage in exchange because I love Japanese culture. And they never go any deeper than that. So with those, I can't really get a sense of who the person is, why they would be a good fit for the JET program. Make it specific, make it about you. Share the story about why you're interested in Japan or why you're interested in education. What specifically do you want to do while you're in the country, both in terms of you yourself with like experiencing Japanese culture, but then what do you want to do in the classroom or what do you want to do in the office environment? What do you want to do when you get back? The more you can make it about you to make you stand out as a candidate, typically those are going to be the stronger essays. And this goes for the interview as well. If you get asked, why do you want to do JET? Saying something like, I just love education and exchange and going no further than that, that won't tell us anything. Maybe there was an educator in your past that motivated you. Maybe you had family who had done JET before who motivated you. Make it a personal experience, make it a personal story that really connects you to the mission of the program, of education, of exchange. Obviously, proofread everything. That's a simple way to avoid any kind of, docs. Make sure you submit the application well before the deadline. There's no benefit to submitting early. We don't rank people in that way. But we don't want a situation where it's the day before the deadline, you realize you don't have something you need. So try to make sure you're not doing it very last minute. Lastly, upload all the supplementary documents. Again, you can check out JET Program USA for a run through of all of that information. And thank you all for listening. I'm not going to take up any more time of this session so we can turn it over to our other speakers. But if you have any questions, check out jetprogramusa.org. Everything is on there. When the application opens, they will be up on jetapplication.com. You're also welcome to contact the JET program office in Washington, D.C. The embassy in D.C. oversees the JET program. operations in the United States as a whole. So they're going to be the ones you want to go to for general questions. And of course, you can also look up and contact your local consulate. There's consulates all over the country. Find which jurisdiction you're in, find where you'd be applying to, and you can reach out to the JET coordinator there if you do have questions. I think I am all set, Julia. So I will be happy to turn it back to you. I'll leave this up for a little bit, and then we can close it when we're ready to move on.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much, Kai. That was all really helpful and super succinct. I feel like you could probably do this in your sleep. All right. And then just a quick reminder, if you still have any questions about the application process or want to hear more about tips too, you'll have a chance to chat with Kai during the breakout rooms if you'd like. And then now I'm going to hand it over to Valerie. She'll be moderating today's discussion and then introducing the rest of our JET alumni panelists.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Valerie Stewart. I'm with JET USA. I was an ALT on the JET program in Saga Prefecture from 99 to 2002. I was in the rural communities of Genkai Town and Karatsu City, and I taught junior high English and also some high school. So I'd like now for all of the panelists to introduce themselves, let us know where you were on the JET program, what levels you taught, and maybe just one, what do you do now? So can we start with Anjaniki?
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Anjaniki Jones. I was a CIR in Kagoshima Prefecture, 99 through 2001. I was 2 years on the program, and now I am working with a group called Maryland Nonprofits, and we are an association of nonprofits, and I'm the director of learning there, coordinating professional development, conferences, and doing a little bit of nonprofit technical assistance and management consulting. Nice to see you all tonight.
Thank you. Rashad?
My name is Rashad, and I'm actually a two-time JET. My first JET experience was in Yamagata Prefecture, 2008, 2010, in a very rural region. And my second JET experience was in Kochi Prefecture, 2018 to 2020. I lived and worked in Kochi City then, and currently I'm an associate editor for a website called Skift, which covers the business of travel and tourism.
Thank you. Leela, thank you. Could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Nice to be with you all today. My name is Leela Kloffenstein. I was an ALT in Nagasaki City, living and working in Nagasaki City from 2017 to 2020, which is a mid-sized tourist city. And I taught at one elementary school and two junior high schools. Currently, I'm just in the middle of changing jobs, but I was working as a project manager and a transportation planner for a regional transportation agency in the Boise, Idaho area where I'm based, but looking to move back to Japan next week. So I'm excited about that.
Thank you. So we'll start with Anjaniki for the first question. What factors encourage you to apply for the JET program?
Well, the first factor, I guess, is that I grew up Buddhist. A lot of people are surprised to hear that, but I did grow up Buddhist, and I practiced a Buddhism that was Japanese Buddhism. And so I met lots of different people in my community and Japanese people, and the scriptures were in Japanese. So I developed an interest in Japanese and then decided to study it in high school and continued on in college. So that was just kind of a theme for me from when I was very little all the way up until after college. So it was a natural progression for me to want to explore that a little bit.
Okay, well, thank you. Leela, how about you?
I wanted to do something international after I finished my undergraduate degree. So I studied international political economy and was always really interested in like international things. So I had visited South Korea when I was like in middle school. And so just so I had applied to both the Peace Corps as well as the JET program and ended up choosing the JET program really because of the structure of the program. It's been around for a really long time, the early 90s. And so you also get a good salary, and it seemed like was a little bit more career advancement opportunities through the JET program. So for all those reasons, I ended up choosing the JET program. Um, as well as my family ties. My mom is Japanese, so I wanted to kind of explore that side of my own heritage. So for all those reasons, after my undergraduate degree, I decided to go to the JET program.
Thank you. And Rashad, why did you apply for the JET program?
Because actually, my jet experience was not my first time living in Japan or even teaching English in the country. I taught English at a private language school from October 2003 to October 2004. And I did enjoy my time there. I enjoyed living in the country, but I really didn't think I explored Japan enough since I lived in the Tokyo area, Yokohama to be exact, and just about all my free time was spent in Shibuya. So I wanted to explore more of the country, and I thought the JET program would be a good opportunity to do so. I heard many good things about the JET program. Obviously, the salary is one, but the opportunity to meet people from all over the Japan and explore a different side of Japan. And so I decided to apply for it. Because actually, my first JET application ended up seeing me. I was an alternate. But then when I reapplied for JET after teaching English in France, I was shortlisted and I spent 2 years in Yamagata Prefecture. I enjoyed my time there a lot. I went home, but I figured I really wanted to do JET again because I wanted to improve my Japanese. And I thought that a second JET stint could boost my career. So I reapplied again and I was shortlisted in 2018 and I went to Kochi.
Great. So this question is for Leela. What was your typical day like as an ALT?
Yeah, my typical day. So I mentioned I was in Nagasaki City, which is a mid-sized city. So I didn't have a car. So I would wake up like probably 6 a.m. and then catch the bus or walk to one of the schools that I was assigned to that day. I was at the elementary school, I want to say two, depending on the year, 2 or 3 days a week, and then would go to my junior high schools, either 1 or 2 days, depending on the week. Um, Typical day, I would get there and then I would lesson prep. So depending on the school and the teacher that I was working with that day, I may or may not have lesson prep duties. So if I was prepping the lesson for the day, then I would do that first thing in the morning, and then go ahead and just teach the classes. I think typically I taught at bigger schools. So I'm just going to guess because I don't really know the exact number, but I would say probably anywhere between 300 to 600 students at a school. So I would have 5 classes typically in a school day, and there's 6 classes total. So it was definitely a busy day, but it was fun. At lunchtime, typically would play with the kids if it wasn't too deathly hot. Nagasaki City is in southern Japan, so it's really hot outside, but I really enjoyed getting to know the kids, especially in the downtime. Um, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thanks. And Janiki, so I know most of us were probably an ALT on the program, but how was your days as a CIR?
If I Every day was a little bit different. I worked in what they call an international association. So that's sort of like a nonprofit, quasi-governmental organization that was there to be a service for people who were interested in international exchange or keeping up with their English skills or all of the things related to tourism we had a library there. So pretty much everything that you saw on, I guess, the slide about the coordinator for international relations could happen in any typical day. I taught 2 classes, and you could think about it as I taught classes to adults. So people who were in conversational English that just wanted to practice in the community once a week. And then I would go to the prefecture governmental building and have conversational English with public servants once a week. And then other than that, I would write for the newsletter. I think that came out a couple times a month or once a month. I would plan just cultural events or participate in cultural events, things like parades, anything from doing speeches. So it was just very different every day. But, I would get on my bike and go to an office and be with my office mates almost every day. And then there are sprinkles of being able to be in the community, even on the weekends sometimes. So,
Well, thank you. So Rashad, this one is for you. What types of valuable support groups or communities did you tap into while living in Japan?
Well, in both places, in Yamagata Prefecture and Kochi Prefecture, there were these international associations where you could take Japanese lessons, and if you needed help about how to live in the community, you could just speak to employees there who could help you through the journey, the highs and the lows of living in Japan. Usually at those places, there was at least one staff member who spoke English, or at the very least, there were staff there who were comfortable working with foreigners. So that was a very good support system to go to these places. One of the places was called the Kochi International Association. Every weekend, I would take, it was every Saturday to be exact, I would take Japanese lessons. And also, they had resources, information in English to help foreign residents, for example, what to do in case of a natural disaster, or there were pamphlets about uh, what to do, what to say in case of an emergency. And there was a place in Yamagata Prefecture I went to every Sunday as well, similar place where I could pick up resources about life in my city, Tsuruoka, and I also took Japanese lessons there. And I was fortunate, of course, every situation is different, but in Yamagata Prefecture, the local Jets and I formed a close-knit community. We would, we would party together, but often we would meet up just for fun times and whatnot. So it helped to have and I was lucky because, as I said, the Yamagata Prefecture, more so in Kochi, the community of just I was around was a very close-knit community. And it also helped me that when I lived in both places, I had the opportunity to teach English conversation classes with local adults. So I had some friendly people who, some of them could speak English either very well or just well enough. But more importantly, the friendly people, friendly faces that I could see outside the classroom like once a week and make friends with Japanese people. So that was very, very helpful.
Well, I love being able to form those communities while you're in Japan. It makes the time more and more bearable. So I enjoyed my time there as well. How about you, Anjaniki? What types of community groups and support groups did you lean on while you were there?
I I did a few different things. So I lived in a small city, I guess you would call Kagoshima City a small city. So there were community centers, and I participated in intramural soccer, indoor soccer with the neighborhood um, students. I would participate in, I guess, the international student scene. So they would get together and have festivals or events or go out to different places. Um, I took a photography class in the community, so it was entirely in Japanese. You're gonna have to do that from time to time, just kind of jump in there. But I was able to take a photography class, and then when that was over, the photography teacher said, "Why don't you continue to learn under me?" So I kind of had private lessons in photography under him. And I would take every opportunity. I was kind of like, yes, 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 anything that I was invited to. So once I was invited to the Kingdom Hall and to go to a Jehovah's Witness service in Japan, and yes, I'm going to go and do that. So I just try to do things that I like to do and find out where Japanese people are doing the things that I like to do, but also be a little bit open to kind of what my colleagues have going on and maybe joining them for things as well.
Thank you.
And I took Japanese
Oh,
lessons.
great.
I took private Japanese lessons. So
So
even at the
Leela,
CRI.
what community organizations or communities did you join?
Yeah. And Janiki, I totally forgot. Yeah, I took private Japanese lessons too. That was super helpful. My Japanese wasn't great going in, so I'm still actually taking those lessons with the same teacher in Nagasaki remotely, even almost 5 years after I left Japan. Um, as for what I did and what support groups and communities I tapped into, in terms of support, I honestly found a ton of support from the other Jets in my community, which I found, I think generally speaking, is the case for most Jets. In Nagasaki, we like at least us in the city, maybe there were about 100, maybe I'm overestimating, 50 to 100 other Jets, which I think was fairly small. So got really close with the Jets locally. And I was so typically when you have multiple schools that you're going to, one of them will be your base school. And so the Board of Education, which is your contracting organization, will send you official communication to that base school, and you'll spend your summer vacations at that one school. So in that sense, you spend the most time at the base school and you form the most lasting relationships there. So I made really great friends with the English teachers that I taught with there, and I was also placed there with another jet from the United Kingdom. And so we had actually come in the same time, the same year, so 2017, and that was great. We even lived in the same apartment building, so had a really great support network with the Jets, as well as just my unique situation with my base school. Um, I also was serving, I think 2018 to 2020, 2018 to 2019, something like that, as the AJET Block 10 representative. So AJET is an organization that splits up the prefectures in Japan into various blocks, and then there'll be a leader that puts together events. And so people from that block area, or even outside of that block area, can go to an event and meet people from other prefectures, which is great because then you get to meet people that are close-ish, but not quite within your town. And at least I really wanted to explore other prefectures, other areas in Japan. So it was a great way to meet people, um, other Jets from across the country. And then I think Rashad had touched on this a little bit, but I also attended an English language group where it's, at least at mine, it was just like held at a coffee shop. And so people, mostly Japanese people who needed to learn English for work reasons, would be there. And so you'd have like conversations with them where you'd speak 15 minutes in Japanese, 15 minutes in English. So that way you were both getting some language practice in. So I found all of those activities really beneficial.
Yeah, I love that too because they do the E in the jet is for exchange, and so we're able to share our culture with those in the community as well. I know I was in a women's dance exercise slash group thing, and most of them were
Yeah.
my students' mothers, participated in AJET, and also took shakuhachi lessons, the bamboo flute. And so now I have the last question for you all. What advice would you give to someone considering applying for the JET program? We'll start with Rashad.
First, be sure why you want to do it because there's so many benefits to doing the JET program. It was a wonderful experience. Both of my JET stints were very enriching. But first, you have to ask yourself, why do you want to do it? And second, are you ready to mentally spend a year in Japan? Now, some people have already lived in Japan, but if you haven't lived in Japan or any other foreign country, ask yourself, am I prepared to be away from family and close friends in the States for a year or maybe even longer?
Thank you. Leela, what about you? What piece of advice would you give to those applying for the JET program?
Yeah, Kai touched on this, but I just want to like double down on it. It's only a 1 year contract. And that's what I tell I like anyone who's interested is like, you don't have to do any longer than a year if it's not for you. But you can learn a lot about yourself in a year. I knew plenty of people who applied for JET and only did a year. Like people from all walks of life. I mean, I met former hedge fund bankers, like like meteorologists, like people, a lot of undergraduates like myself coming straight out of university, but like it is really people from all walks of life, and they're just doing it for, 1 year to 5 years and really learning a lot about themselves and the country and Japan along the way. Um, One thing that I didn't really know coming from the US is that the JET program is international. So a lot of the friends that you make on the program, you'll keep for life. And then you create a network of friends across the world that are not just in Japan, but other countries as well. So I thought that was surprising, but also something to know about the program, which I thought was a huge benefit. And then I was in I would say fairly rural, mid-sized city. And so wherever you're placed, you're going to get a lot out of it. I knew a lot of Jets in the Saga area, and like they loved their experience because of the rural nature. You kind of almost created stronger bonds. And so if you're in an urban area, it's also great. But wherever you're placed, I think generally you have a lot of support, and it's a really great experience. So.
I do a piggyback and agree on that. Everyone says that their placement was the best placement. Well, not everyone, but most say that where they were placed becomes the best place in Japan for them. And I agree. Anjaniki, how about you? What advice would you give?
I mean, I would echo everything that Leela said, Rashad said. I may add to that, make sure that you have thought about whether you have a temperament for the work. And the work is very much public. I mean, whether you're, an ALT or CIR, you are on and you're on a lot. And so make sure that you just have a temperament for it. I'm not going to put people in categories and say extrovert, introvert. That would be one advice. Just kind of know yourself in that way. Um, and then kind of be okay with not knowing. When you go into a foreign country, and you all have probably traveled so many different places. There's a lot that you're not going to know. There's a lot that you're going to have to learn and pick up, and just be immature enough to just know that you kind of have to be okay with not knowing and enjoying that experience of exploration. Um, and I think if you're planning on making this a short term, maybe like 1 year, or 2 year experience, it probably helps to know kind of maybe what you want to pivot to after, and just kind of be thinking about that as well. And then maybe some of the experiences that you can gather while you're in Japan can help kind of inform some of those things that you're going to do later. And you certainly have lots of options now with the internet and being able to connect all of your different interests, and make this a very, very great experience. I think those would be my things. If you are a couple of years out, say you're a junior or a sophomore, or say you're a junior or a freshman in college now, if you do have an opportunity to study abroad, um, that could be something that you want to take advantage of, just to test the waters a little bit before you decide to work full time for a year in another country.
Well, thank you all. So I thank all the panelists for your insight and your wisdom, and we appreciate everything. And so if you want to ask more questions or follow up with any of the panelists, you will have the opportunity to in the upcoming breakout. So Julia, turning it back over to you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. It's always great hearing everyone's experiences and insight.